Hi guys, welcome to another crochet tutorial with me, Laura, and the return of Yarn Scrap Friday. I know many of you have waited a long time for the return of Yarn Scrap Friday, and if you don't know what Yarn Scrap Friday is, basically every Friday I'm going to be releasing a crochet tutorial that's going to be using up all those leftover yarn balls, all those yarn scraps. So they're going to be quick, small, fast projects for you to enjoy. And today we're going to be starting off with, there's going to be some mini fruit coming first, but we're going to start off with this tiny little pear today. And then a few Fridays along, we're going to show you how to make the little apple to go with it as well. So let's begin. Okay, so for this tutorial, we're just going to need some green yarn and a tiny little bit of brown yarn as well. And I'm just using a sport baby weight yarn, so that's a yarn weight of 2, but you can use any yarn that you like. So basically any yarn scraps that you have. So, and we're going to also use a few yarn scraps for stuffing as well, but you can use toy stuffing as well. And with this yarn, I'm using a 3mm crochet hook, and let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with either a magic circle or a chain 4 loop. I'm going to do a chain 4 loop for beginners. So we'll do our little slip knot, and then we're going to chain 4. So chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 4. We're going to slip stitch into our first chain. So put our hook into our first chain. Bring the yarn through the first chain and straight through the loop on your hook, and we have a little loop of chains, and into there we're going to do 7 single crochet. So this pattern's in US terminology, so in UK terminology that's going to be a double crochet. We're going to start off with a little chain 1 for leverage. Don't count that as a stitch. Putting our hook into the center, so be careful not to put it into the first chain, which can look quite big. Want to go into the middle. Bring the yarn through, then just wrapping it around the chains, we do a single crochet. We want 7 of those, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and one more, 7, and hopefully if you've worked into the middle and carried your tail a little bit, you should be able to put it in, pull in that hole just a tiny bit. What we're going to do, we're going to slip stitch. We're not going to slip stitch actually, we're not going to join, so I am habit. We're just going to go straight into our first single crochet, and we're going to do 2 single crochet in each stitch around. So we're not going to join the round. We're just going to work continuously like a snail's spiral shell. So put your hook into the first single crochet and work 2 single crochet. So don't slip stitch, you want to do a single crochet, and we want 2 in there. So go back into there again, 2. And we want to do 2 single crochet in each stitch around, so we end up with a stitch count of 14. So it's a good idea to either use a stitch marker if you want to, or just count. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and do 2 single crochet. So it's just 3 and 4. Next stitch, 5 and 6. 5 and 6. Next stitch, 7 and 8. Next stitch, 9 and 10. Next stitch, 11 and 12. Next stitch, 13 and 14. So you should end up with a stitch count of 14. and it should look a little bit bigger. It should have something like this. Then we're going to do 2 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So we're not going to join the rounds, we're just going to go straight into the next stitch and do 1 single crochet. And we'll do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 14. I'm going to do that twice. Okay, so you might want to count 14 twice. Okay, so I shall do that and then I shall come back. 3, 13 and 14. Okay, so last stitch. So I've just done 2 rounds of 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 14, and you want the project to come away from you like this. And hopefully you've got a little tiny bowl shape. But what we're going to do now is we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together to reduce the stitch count back down to 7. And because it's such a small project, I'm going to do the invisible decrease. So to do the invisible decrease, rather than going under both loops, we're just going to go under that front loop, then go over to the next stitch and go under that front loop only, bring the yarn through, and then pull through 2 loops to do a single crochet. So we're going to do that all the way around. So do that 7 times into the front loop, then the next front loop, bring the yarn through and do a single crochet. That single crochets, invisibly single crochets 2 stitches together. So it creates a smoother decrease. Okay, the next 2. You might want to flatten your project as it gets a bit smaller. Four, and do that twice more, I think. Then the last 2. I think that's the, is that the last 2? Or have I still got 2 more? I think I still have 2 more. So onto the front loop. And next front loop. And it should end up with a stitch count of 7, hopefully. And it's getting quite small now, but let's bring up a loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to stuff our little pear at this point. And I'm just going to use some leftover yarn scraps. So always pick, if you're using leftover yarn scraps, then choose a colour that is fairly complementary to your project. So I'm just going to pick a few greens, not going to need much. Doesn't matter if a little bit of red gets in there, it's fine. And then using some blunt scissors, we're just going to keep our working yarn out of the way and we're going to stuff our tiny little pear. Okay, so I shall do that, then I shall come back. Okay, so finished stuffing the little pear and we're just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around for the next round. So we're just going to count up to 7. So going into the next stitch, I'm just going to do 1 single crochet and just do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 7. It's getting super fiddly now. And 3. 4. 5. 6. And the last one, 7. Okay. And then we're just going to finish up with single crocheting 2 stitches together about 2 or 3 times. And this might be really fiddly, so I recommend bringing up a little loop and then going into the next front loop and over to the next front loop. But if it's too fiddly, if you really struggle with that, then maybe just do a normal decrease, which I might do, and that's going into the next stitch. Then going into the next stitch. Grab the yarn, then pull through all 3 loops. So that's a traditional decrease. I might be able to do that one more time. Again, bring up a loop, go into the next stitch, bring the yarn through, into the next stitch, bring the yarn through, pull your yarn a little bit, pull through all 3 loops, and then can I do it one more time? I'm going to try to the next stitch, then into the next stitch, and then it really is just too small. At least to do on camera anyway, you guys might find it a bit easier. There we go, we did it 3 times, and then what we're going to do is cut our yarn. And we're just going to pull that tail end through, and we're just going to sew the end closed. So we're going to get a yarn needle, and we're just going to sew any remaining hole closed. So go into the next stitch, out through the next stitch, little pull, and then into the next stitch and just sew over, and then hide your tail end. Okay, so I'm going to go up through the middle, then down to the very bottom, and then we can cut our yarn. Okay, so there's our basic little pear shape, and you might just want to move the stuffing around like so. And then all that's left to do is the tiny little stem. So we're going to get some brown yarn, tiny little bit of brown yarn, just about this much. These scissors really are blunt. And what we're going to do at one end is we're going to tie a knot in one end. Just bring that down to the bottom, okay, and that'll just catch on the inside. Then get our yarn needle again, sew that on, and then we're just going to come up through the bottom all the way to the top. And that tail end should hopefully disappear on the inside. If not, you can just trim down the very end. Careful to not cut the knot. And again, disappear on the inside. And then we just cut our stem down to size. Now obviously this is not that secure, so if you're letting children play with this, you might want to secure this better. But there we go, there is our tiny little pear to go with our bit neater pear done off camera. A couple of pairs of pears. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, hope you managed to follow along, and hopefully had some green yarn and some brown yarn to make some adorable, cute, tiny pears. And I will see you next Friday for another Yarn Scrap Friday tutorial. And I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon supporters for helping make this happen. So do check out my Patreon channel for extra behind the scenes and extra content, tutorials and all sorts of things. So go check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye. A little behind the scenes, literally just finished the live. And really enjoyed chatting with you, Genevieve, and it's great to see Liz just saying she's printed off the pattern as well, and great to have Jane join as well. So we have 3 people join. I'm really pleased. So, and just getting that all sorted and available post live, and I'm really amazed that I managed to crochet another bee. I think next month I'm going to design something a little bit easier, but what was quite good about this pattern is it's a lot of repeating, so I get time to chat with you guys a bit more. So but yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for joining, and yeah, I think I might have to have a glass of wine now and recover.